Yeah, so let's talk a bit about privacy. So the blockchain is like a Twitter for a bank account. So all transactions are public by default. So when you pay to someone, this person is able to look for entire transaction history or check all your holdings. And it's not very convenient, so for most users it's unacceptable. In traditional finance, all transactions are private by default, and especially for businesses, they are not very comfortable sharing their cash flows and clients and all this stuff. So for good adoption, the blockchain needs to have good privacy options. And with growing popularity of chain analysis tools, it becomes easier and easier to track other people's funds and financial history. So privacy should be like a feature and not a product. So there are many separate privacy chains that have only a single feature, privacy, but we want to have this as a feature in Ethereum. On Ethereum blockchain, just one of many features that Ethereum has. And it's possible to implement all the privacy features on Ethereum. Current Tornado Cash version that is on production is just the first step. It's possible to do much better than that. So I give a brief overview of privacy on other blockchains in crypto. So I will not mention like privacy based on like custodial mixers or SGX technology because it's not secure at all. So the good privacy options are on Bitcoin. The best we have is CoinJoin. Those are transactions that have like hundreds of inputs of the same amount and hundreds of outputs, and they are mixed between each other, so anonymity sets for each transaction is separate. So each output can originate from one of possible like 100 inputs. There is Mimble-Wimble technology. For example, Beam and Green chains are based on this technology, but it provides only confidentiality. So Mimble-Wimble hides the amount that is transferred, but doesn't hide the transaction graph, who transfers to whom. So next, there is Monero. In Monero, for each transaction, there are 10 fake inputs and 2 like real inputs. So this is decoy-based system, and it's pretty hard to analyze it, but it's still possible. So some data still leaks, and by exploring like taint trees, it's in some cases it's possible to de-anonymize Monero transactions. So Zcash is one of the best privacy technologies, and it perfectly hides transaction graph, but it probably needs more usage to be good. And then there are 2 options on Ethereum, Aztec and Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash has more usage, but Aztec in the long term has pretty good technology. So it can take some time to implement it, but it's pretty good. So the current Tornado Cash stats, it has 500 million of TVL, and 2% of all existing Ether has already passed through Tornado Cash smart contracts. It has volume around like $5 billion a year, and plenty of transactions. So pretty good anonymity set. It also has some drawbacks. So in Tornado Cash, we have pools of fixed amounts, like 1 Ether, 10 Ether, and 100. They are like separate, and they have separate anonymity sets. And it's also not very convenient to use those fixed amounts, because you often need some custom amount to pay someone. And it's also pretty expensive. So 1 million gas for deposit and 400K for withdrawal. And recently, Tornado Cash released a new version that fixes some of those problems. So it allows to transfer arbitrary amounts. And it works like a shielded pool with UTXO model inside, so it's possible to do joins, splits, private shielded transfer inside the pool. And it also uses Gnosis chain under the hood, so it looks like you're still on Ethereum, but you never need to switch the network, but the transactions are much cheaper thanks to usage of SI chain. So here is a quick demo. Just a sec. So in Nova, we connect MetaMask with mainnet, and we can deposit some arbitrary amount to our account. So the transaction will forward the funds to Gnosis chain and then deposit them into shielded pool on Tornado Cash, all in a single action. The video is sped up, so it takes around like 2 minutes to do this action. So after transaction is confirmed, you will have some funds in your shielded account, and you can do a shielded transfer to other users that are already registered in the same shielded pool in the Nova. You can transfer any amount, and for shielded transfers, the fee is less than 1 cent, and the transfer is pretty fast. It all happens inside this shielded pool. And then it's possible to withdraw your funds back to mainnet. And there are fixed amounts that we recommend to withdraw, but it's possible to set any custom amount. So you just hit withdraw, generate snark proof, and the funds will be on the target address on the mainnet. And you never need to switch the network in the MetaMask. It always stays on mainnet. So here's a simple explanation how it works. So when you deposit, you send the transaction to MetaMask with MetaMask to XDAI bridge. It will transfer funds to Gnosis chain and then puts them in Tornado pool. When you do shielded transfer, it is done using a relayer. So you generate snark proof, send it to relayer, and relayer will send the transaction to Gnosis chain for you to preserve the privacy. And when you withdraw, you also send the transaction through a relayer. Then Tornado pool will send the funds to XDAI bridge, and XDAI bridge will send it to your target mainnet address. So the Tornado Cash Nova was rolled out to mainnet a few months ago. It still has limit of 1 Ether per deposit. So we want to avoid, like in case the bug is found, we want to avoid people losing funds. So it's still in beta mode, but so far no bugs were found. And it has over 3,000 Ether deposited, considering there is a limit. That is pretty good usage stats, 1 million TVL and plenty of transactions. So let me explain a little bit how it works under the hood. I'll try to make some simple explanation, but I hope it will be clear. So how the Tornado Cash Classic works first. It maintains internal Merkle tree of so-called commitments. When you send a deposit, you send some Ether along with some hash, and the smart contract will put your commitment in its Merkle tree. So how the zero knowledge actually works here. So when you deposit, you generate 2 random numbers called secret and nullifier. If you hash 2 of those numbers, nullifier and secret, you get what we call commitment hash, or simply commitment. This is the string that gets inserted in the Merkle tree. And there is also another entity, nullifier hash. If you hash only 1 of those random numbers, you get nullifier hash that is linked to your commitment hash, but for external observer, they look like two entirely different numbers. So only you know this connection. So when you do a deposit, you send this commitment along with Ether, and it gets inserted into the tree. And when you do a withdrawal, you generate a zero-knowledge proof, proving two things. First, that your commitment is in the Merkle tree, so you generate Merkle proof for that. And also, the smart contract will check that your nullifier hash hasn't been published yet. This is protection from double spends. So when someone sends a proof that has already known nullifier hash, that means this Tornado Cash node was already withdrawn. So for snarks, public inputs are Merkle root, so the smart contract will check that its Merkle root corresponds to the one used to generate the snark proof. And a nullifier hash will be also public. And privately, when you're generating a snark proof, you will provide a nullifier, secret, and Merkle proof. This is visible only to you, and the snark proof is generated in the browser. So those private inputs never leave your client side, like your browser. Then Tornado Cash Nova is a little bit more complex system, but it's based on the same concept. So it makes the node a little bit more complex. So now your node contains the amount that you're sending, public key that owns this node, and also some secret number. So if you hash all those three numbers, you get the commitment that is inserted in the tree when the node is generated. And there is also nullifier hash that is computed a little bit differently, but the same concept is important, that is somehow linked to your node. So its commitment hash and nullifier hash are linked. So when we do a transaction, it is simple join split transaction that takes two inputs and produces two outputs. So it basically spends two nodes and generates two new nodes. And the snark checks that input amount, so sum of input nodes is equal to output amount, and also checks that spender knows the private keys. And also for each node, it checks all the rules that is checked in Tornado Cash Classic version. So here the public inputs would be Merkle root, two nullifiers for two input nodes, two new commitments that get inserted in the Merkle tree as a result of this transaction. And then there are private inputs, basically your node, private key to spend those nodes, and Merkle proof for each one. So essentially, this is, you take some model similar to Bitcoin, but private. This is the same technology that is used in Zcash shielded pools. So pretty similar pool, but on Ethereum. What also can be implemented in the next version of the protocol would be token support, and it's pretty easy to add. So in addition to amount, we can just add additional field, asset ID, and that's pretty much all that is needed to add the token support. Also, shielded atomic swaps are possible, so swaps inside the privacy pool. And there are some other features that we want to implement, like diversified addresses. So it's pretty convenient if you have a single private key and can generate any amount of addresses corresponding to the same private key. So each time you give someone the address to send you shielded Ether, you can give out different address, but all of them will point to your same wallet. Also viewing keys for compliance. So Tornado Cash Classic has a compliance tool that allows you to prove your origin of funds For example, if you withdraw from Tornado Cash and send to centralized exchange, you can also provide this compliance report to show where the funds come from. So this new version will also support that. And then it probably will use some layer 2 technology like rollup, like we're looking for different rollups. We hope that they will have better bridges because now we implemented like the Tornado Cash Nova is deployed on Gnosis chain because it's the only one chain that provides fast withdrawals to Ethereum mainnet. Optimistic rollups has 7 days delays and Polygon has 3-hour delay. So we hope that other chains will have better bridges soon. And the transactions fee on the new version will probably be paid with a single unified asset like Torn, because when you transfer different ERC20s, you need to pay a fee to Relayer, but you don't want to expose which asset you are transferring. So it's a pretty good idea to have all the transaction fees paid with a single asset for any transaction. So this is pretty much it. If anyone has questions.
All right, we'll start here. Hi, you mentioned ERC 721 support. How would that work realistically, right? Because they're, well, non-fungible.
Yeah, so ERC 721 NFTs will remain private as long as they're in the shielded pool. So you put NFT in the shielded pool and will be able to transfer it to someone in a shielded transaction, and it will be not visible that you transferred this NFT. It will remain on the balance of Tornado Cash Nova. And you can also sell it using Atomic Swap to someone else. But when someone withdraws this NFT from the shielded pool, it's of course visible where they withdraw it to.
All right. So does Tornado use blockchain forensic tools like, say, a chain analysis or Elliptic or Cypherblade at the start where they verify what sort of funds are coming into? If they're sort of suspect funds or, say, hack funds, is that sort of verified?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Yeah, so the question is, when someone deposits into Tornado, do you verify what sort of funds are those? So in the sense, like, do you use blockchain forensic tools like Cypherblade, chain analysis, or some of these to verify whether they are from,
So we as the developers don't have any access to smart contracts like Tornado Cash smart contracts because the contracts are immutable. There is no admin access. So all the contributors have the same access to it as any other regular user. So there is no one that can change or censor transactions.
Sure. I'm just saying, but the deposit would happen from a particular address. Imagine that address is tagged that this has been used for example, an illegitimate activity. That can be served through to the smart contract through an oracle, which oracle would probably track these are the set of addresses that have been marked with a certain label. So.
Yeah, so in the same way that you cannot censor a regular Ethereum transaction, for example, there are tainted funds in some Ethereum addresses, you cannot tell miners to not accept transactions from this address. So you cannot prevent anyone from doing a regular transfer in Ethereum. In the same way it works with Tornado Cash. You cannot prevent anyone from interacting with a smart contract. It's trustless.
Okay. And do you see, like, have you kind of dealt with law enforcement agencies coming to Tornado Cash and sort of requesting for any modulations or modifications around what's being done right now?
So there is not possible to do, it's not possible to do any modifications even if you want to. The contracts are already deployed. But usually law enforcement guys, they go and ask for logs from Infura, Etherscan, and all those other Web2 services. And often this is enough to solve the cases.
Understood. You also mentioned one thing around compliance auditability. I didn't understand that, but where you said if you're moving funds to a centralized exchange, you would be able to showcase those logs. I didn't clearly understand what exactly you said.
So the user that has the node that allows him to withdraw the funds, the same node can be used to generate the cryptographic proofs that links deposit with withdrawal. So the user can selectively disclose his private data to someone. So the choice is in the hands of the user.
Understood. And how long before NOAA would sort of go live for all sort of users? Right now, I think it has 1 million TVL that is out there.
Yeah, so Tornado Cash Classic also has the compliance tool that is widely used.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else have a question? Stand up, raise your hand if you do. Oh, right here.
Hello. So you have proposed one solution. You have proposed one solution where you will try to generate multiple public keys from a single private key. How you intend to do that?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
Multiple public addresses from a single private key, right? Could you, how you intend to do that?
This is, involves a little bit of math, but essentially you mix some random number to your private key to generate new addresses. So each time you will get a new one. But yeah, it's very complicated to explain in 1 minute.
Any reading material on that?
Zcash has similar features that is widely documented. So if you're interested, you can just look up diversified addresses in Zcash. Our implementation will be pretty similar.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. My question is fairly simple. How would you describe zero-knowledge proofs to people who don't yet understand, or better said, to maybe an 8-year-old? Thank you.
How do you explain to a 5-year-old?
Yeah, it's a thing that allows you to prove something without disclosing what exactly you're proving. Like, for example, that I know code to padlock, but I don't want to tell you exactly what code it is, just the fact that I know it.
Yeah, actually it's not a question, it's more of the zero knowledge proof analogy. I don't know if you know that to a corporate, you'd use the Sudoku example. So let's say I played Sudoku and I beat you, but I want to prove to you that I beat you without showing you the answer. You'd be able to verify the lines and the boxes without actually showing the Sudoku solution. So that's how you prove zero knowledge proof.
That's actually pretty good. I like it. All right. Any other hands? So let's have a round of applause